Cool. All right. Getting started, making sure everything's good. No,
Sounds good.
sounds good. Everything's good. Stream is good. There you go. Stream is ready. Yeah. Good to have Richard again on the show. We talked last time with SVB DAO. And yeah, you called it. You called it. You said there was going to be, you're just going to go straight into the issues. You called it and said, I think on our messages, that there was one more event that was going to happen. And
Yeah.
you indeed called it. What do you think of
Yeah.
CZ?
I think he said he's got some woes ahead. I think he's got a challenge in front of him. There's a lot. What came out was, I mean, I think Gensler is well, Gensler swinging for the fences, and now CTFC is coming in hard, going for the jugular is what it looks like to me.
Yeah, I've got, so I'm going to get it open today. So did you read all 74 pages? I mean, I downloaded it. There
No,
we go.
I did not.
74. Yes, it was 74.
I did skim it pretty hard,
Right.
and I mean, you could see the big, this the size and the scope and the intent
Yes.
is what
Yeah.
is what's alarming. You
Yep.
know, um, right off the bat, uh, quotes, texts, chats, and then the continuing names, the personal names, along with the organization.
Yep.
I think I counted at least like 7 times. So there's like some hardcore going after the corporate veil.
Right.
Uh, yeah, I mean, what else did you see that jumped
Yeah,
out?
well, it was, yeah, lots of names, right? So obviously, Insider, it's spilling the beans.
Hmm.
Pissed off somebody, right? Because otherwise, why would anyone talk, right? Self-incriminating. And probably someone got a deal, right? Someone got a deal, or someone's going to
Yeah,
get a deal, right?
right. If they don't have, that's how they play it right off the bat.
Right.
Is get someone to flip quick,
Right.
and usually that's the thing too. And it's like whoever flips first
Right. Gets the
gets the
deal. Yeah, gets the immunity, and then everybody gets screwed. But
yeah.
it's, if you're not doing bad things, you don't have to be scared, But you're doing something. And then I saw, yeah, all the chats. They were like, yeah, purposely using Signal because then it would have an auto delete function.
Mhm.
What else is the 74 pages? Yeah, just internal memos, right? Internal conversations, like names for certain things, quote and unquote, like, yeah, just nicknames and yeah, direct quotes. There were direct quotes as well.
CZ and Lim were listed in all 7 violations.
Oh, was it?
So
Okay.
at least were in all 7 of them. And then just really bold language, like the defendants have disregarded applicable federal laws while
Hmm.
fostering Binance's U.S. customer base.
Right.
So obviously, we've always known that they were going to kind of come after, U.S.
Yep.
version.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so it's extensive. I mean,
Lim
A4
is
page.
the compliance guy, right? He's the compliance guy.
Yes, yeah, I
Yeah.
believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Um, and then there was something about house accounts,
Samuel Lim.
like with the way that they were phrasing some of that house accounts, and I want to say they mentioned something like 300 of them.
300. Yeah, I got
That
300 as well.
starts to really, and then they're bringing in the trading arms, right? So they're bringing in Merit and Sigma.
Yep.
So then you really start to talk about that's like you're focused on insider trading,
Right.
um, which is that's a whole nother, that's a huge. I mean, I don't see, I don't know I would love to have somebody help quote the statistic on that, but the amount of times that insider trading gets dropped or settled to get, like where they misfiled a claim. I don't
Right.
ever remember even that happening. It's like if they come after you for that, I think they've got you,
Right.
you
Yeah, let
know.
me let me I actually had warned someone in Binance about this type of stuff. And I'm
Really?
not gonna, yeah, I wouldn't like name her directly, but we went to school together. Now I went to multiple schools, so so it's maybe hard to track, but I did warn her. I was like, yeah, I don't know, right? I've heard some things, and this wasn't directly kind of with this case, but it was a bit of rumors about insider stuff, and I said you got to be careful. And she worked for a big bank, right? So I was looking out for her and saying reputation, and this might not be a place where you want to kind of hinge your reputation around. And she denied it, and she's a smart cookie, and so I think part of it is also I think CZ does a pretty good job of like not letting insiders kind of like the whole SBF type of thing, right? Like there's an inner circle that knows, um, and there's probably a big kind of fence around that, and so thankfully I think she's outside of it.
Mm.
But again, like you said, right, all it takes is that inner circle, someone flips, right? So in SBF, it's Caroline, and I think the CTO flipped, right, and then it's all over.
Yeah, yeah. And that's and some of that it's like I like that they reinforced the whistleblower laws a couple years ago, and
Mm.
like 10% of the damages that the government seeks. I don't know if you're familiar, just in general on
Oh,
the
is that right?
whistleblower, on like malfeasance and on bad things. Yeah. So it really has encouraged them like to be safer, to feel more protected, and to monetarily gain from illegal activities that they find out about.
Oh,
Um, and so that I think is a good thing, that that's helping because it does fight corruption, sort of,
sure,
But
right,
on this whole who flips first stuff,
right,
it sort of bothers me because it's like, they if they're totally a part of whatever it is, and it's again all alleged. Hopefully, there's nothing, but this doesn't look good. But just to come after them and then just see that, to me, something about that just seems so like they're playing both sides and
yeah,
benefiting the
yeah,
whole
yeah,
time, and I
yeah.
would almost rather like see that I mean, again, to do what they have to do to win their case or whatever, but it
Right.
always just feels a little sleazy, a little
I know
slimy.
it's like a bounty. It's like a
Right.
bounty.
It's like,
Yeah,
oh, so you were dirty the whole time, you got caught, and now you're
right.
just like, yeah. And I wish that that's not the way that they had to do some of these things, but it does seem like that's what they have to do.
I mean, I think we're both old enough to remember. I kind of talked about this, like Cops, right? Like the series, and
Yeah.
I do kind of like it when the cops kind of come and there's the modern cops and what they've been doing now, and then I think the old cops were just kind of arresting bad guys. But I didn't know about the 10%. So this is huge. So
Yeah.
Part G, an order directing defendants to pay civil monetary penalties, and I think it was uh, an order requiring defendants to make full restitution by making whole each and every customer or investor whose funds were received. And this is the U.S. side. So 20%, yeah, 20% of Binance was U.S. based, is what's alleged. Something around
Hmm.
there's like
Hmm.
20% in 2019, right? So let's just assume 25% now.
Yeah.
What is that then? I don't think that's
These
public,
things
right? The figures.
unwind all the way back to 2017,
Oh, is that
which is
right?
part of your thing. So it was like making everyone whole all the way back to 2017. You're just talking billions and billions, I think, of
Yeah, I'm
dollars.
just looking at Binance revenues. Let's see what public figures they have. The exchange's annual revenue reached around 12 billion in 2022. And so if it's about 25% of that is American, that's just rough math, 3 billion in 2022.
Mm, yeah.
And so yeah, whoever's benefiting from this is it's going to do pretty good actually.
And then see, well, if there is a whistleblower, and that's the thing, if
Right.
there is a whistleblower, then yeah, no, it is huge. And that's again, that would be, I would prefer to versus this other thing where, like we are saying, that somebody just flips.
Right.
So yeah, that would be really interesting. I didn't get any sense of that in this document because normally they would have someone as
Ah,
repeatedly
right, right, right.
you know there would be a reference to someone who is still under protection, and I didn't see any of that.
Right.
So
But then
yeah,
some
it'd
wait,
be
wait. But to that point, there's enough internal dialogue, right? Internal chat where someone obviously like supplied it but
You would say,
it's
right, unless they got
right.
hacked in some way. I don't know. I didn't get a feel for that in this yet. It'd be something to take a second look at and see,
Interesting.
because I
Okay.
saw also where evidence it was saying that if they failed to engage or failed
Yes.
to defend themselves,
Yes.
then they would add additional charges,
Yep. 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 I
and
saw
they
that
would
as well.
continue to pursue them into other countries.
Right.
So it again, you never know. A lot of times, if somebody's just building a case and they get to a certain point and they're like, just put everything in, just put it all
Okay.
in.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
so you can't always tell an intent, I think, from that. But um, yeah, there's another word. The Binance team will never legally hold another U.S. commodity or access U.S. securities again in their life.
Yeah. So,
This is
so,
hard.
so it
It's
that's
brutal.
that's what I thought. I thought it was going to be hard, but then someone kind of asked me, and we're currently in Hong Kong. There's a lot of like crypto activity this week, a lot of conferences and stuff. And this old banker, he basically just said, "What?" But the markets didn't really respond. So Bitcoin went down went down $1,000, but it
Mhm.
just kind of bounced back up. And in terms of the broader market, I looked at there was an S&P broader kind of crypto market index, and that only went down 5%. So
And
kind of the
Ethereum's
market didn't
up.
respond. So
No.
what do you
Yeah.
think? Is it priced in, or is it just not fully understood?
I think it's priced in.
Okay.
I think that so just as much as they're gonna say some things here about people do and insiders this and that,
Right.
we should not forget that Gensler used to teach blockchain at MIT.
Mm.
He is very familiar, I think, on the difference between what crypto and what's technology,
Mm.
and so I think that he's a big believer, most likely in the technology, and that I based that off of not just his experience, but what was submitted to House of Representatives,
Mm.
that resolution 238 that
Right.
says,
Yeah, we were
pretty
going to
much
talk
you'd have
about
to
that.
really go through it, but it mentions blockchain and
Right.
proof of work mining,
Yep.
and that that's a digital asset that if let me just kind of paraphrase, is critical component of the United States' ability to achieve energy independence and long-term national security.
Mm.
So that came out 4 days ago, 5 days ago,
Yep. That's
pretty much
right.
the day after the initial lawsuit, or day before.
The day before.
Right.
I think it's a day before. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this tells me that, again, I don't think that there's definitely some big debates on what's not what the regulations will be. But I
Yep.
think that if anyone who's really an insider and is aware of all of these things together,
Mm.
that this is not meant to destroy the technology or shut down the underlying,
Mm.
but they do want to protect investors, is
Mm.
what I'm reading here. And I think they want to say they don't want any more scams. They don't want any more questionable activity. I think they're going to come out with a set of regulations.
Mm.
We'll say this is how it's going to be,
Right.
and you pay to play or you don't get in the game.
So basically, you're saying it's priced in the sense that everyone's kind of expecting this anyway. And I guess to some degree, everyone's expecting Gensler, maybe, Binance, expecting the cleanup, right? And so maybe, yeah, maybe it's all priced in, and then now we can kind of start moving forward.
Yes.
But
Yeah. I
then
think
Binance is still not in the clear with this, right? So potentially Binance, well, not potentially, Binance US is over.
I think it's over.
It's over, right? So, and
I
then
think
Binance, the rest of the world, I guess they just have to be super careful, really.
Yeah, I'd like to find out. Did you hear any more update? Yes. So totally, yes, I agree with that. Any update on Do Kwon and what happened with his arrest?
No. So I also looked into that this morning. He's arrested in Montenegro, and he is wanted by actually South Korean authorities and the U.S. But I
Hmm.
think he's being extradited back to South Korea, and then I guess they'll figure it out between him and between South Korea and U.S. what like who has jurisdiction. But I guess because he's going to South Korea first, it'll be them.
Yeah.
So that's him.
So yeah, so I think looking at that, this would be the future, scenario if you try to avoid or try to, then
Right.
they'd be looking at the CZ be looking at the same thing. So I think I think that honestly, U.S. had to, in some ways, I think that they were actually pretty patient at potentially
Mm.
the investors' expense with some of
Mm.
these collapses and some of these back to 2017. How long did it need? How long did we need to take to realize that
Mm.
this is how the markets were playing out? Some people were getting
Mm.
scammed. They know these things. They're the federal
Mm.
government. So
Mm.
nothing really came. No
That's
one
a good
really
point.
came to like fight that fight.
Right.
And so they just said enough. I mean, with
Yes.
that resolution,
Right.
to have some real big clarity in blockchain technology. I mean, they're
Right.
talking about national security and energy independence.
Right.
Like, like these are huge initiatives for the United States. And if you can't have that and know that it's protected and it's
R-
it doesn't have to be a walled garden, but it's in some kind of garden. I think that that's
Right.
super critical to what they're putting in front of Congress right now.
Yep.
And at the same time, they're like, so they just had to bring a fight somewhere to get clarity. I think.
That's a really good point. Actually, you're right. It's the timing of the two. Actually,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's the on one hand we believe in innovation, we believe in blockchain. We're gonna put this bill in front, and then I'm gonna put the link of the bill actually. And you're right. I think you're the only one that kind of mentioned it. You mentioned it in the WhatsApp group. I don't think I saw it on Twitter.
right.
But you're right. But it's the timing of
Wow.
the two. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
there's
it's
a
yeah,
whole yeah.
yeah. And the speculation on the market side, protect the retail investors. Let's clean it up.
Hmm.
And you make a good point. Sorry, and just continue that thought. The timing of the bill, but you also make a good point. They kind of let this go a little bit too long at the expense, and I guess fine, right? Maybe that's it is the it is what it is, and
Hmm.
but they finally kind of said we just have to clean it up now.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, they even let. I mean, things got to failures, and I
Right.
think they probably were hoping that maybe consumers would be up in arms with, the sometimes you get like a class action or you get
Mm,
some
mm,
other
mm, mm,
force and
mm.
sidelines because it's going to get played out on its own. And
Right.
it doesn't seem like that's really happened here. I
Right.
mean, I haven't really followed what happened with losses from other situations in the last couple of years,
There
but
was conversation about class action, I think, against Doe. Yeah, I think in Korea there was a class action. No one ever said like Binance because, yeah, ultimately I think it wasn't proven or it couldn't be, or it was, it was, I think, quite hidden. And I think the entities were also quite hidden. And so I
mhm.
think he intentionally made it that way. And then SPF, I think it was very hidden, right? So I don't think anyone kind of did a class action there. But yeah, I think with the Doe, I had heard thoughts. Right.
And I think everyone was a little bit surprised with the filing of the bankruptcy so quickly with FTX, and that
Mm,
the Bahamian government had
right. Right.
collected 10 billion, 10 whatever it was,
Yep.
some large amount.
Right.
So that also didn't play out, and exactly, I don't think the feds were really expecting
Ah, I see what you
that to
mean.
happen. I think they were a little bit shocked that he
Ah, I
filed so
see.
quickly for here and kind of took
Right.
it that direction. But I'd love to hear. I mean, we'll have to pull that up and keep that you
Yeah.
know how those play out. Well, ultimately, they're a little bit ahead in the queue for what's happening
Right.
here.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so some big events happened, and no one really seemed to cry, help us, and
Right.
so they had to just finally, I think, bring it. And I don't think there's any coincidence between these things being going into Congress, and it's
Yeah.
like they got to have enough.
And actually, you make a good kind of connection between the Do Kwon arrest. So he basically he would go to jail. CZ may potentially go to jail, right? Let's see how this kind of plays out. But if that were the case, then Binance may not work out. So Binance US definitely won't work out. Binance International depends on basically whether he can kind of drag this out basically, right?
Yeah. 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 I mean, the way that they've got that worded, I think that he understands he has to take it serious. I think
Yes.
take a full, I think you get 30 to 40 days. It was like 20 to respond, but then the response will just be like, we need,
Right.
and so I think you're going to see in about a month, they would have, well, the response and
So
how,
it said actually, like CTFC tends to be a place where as long as you pay the fine, they'll let you go. CFTC, sorry. Do
right.
you right? As long as you pay off, you're okay.
Yeah. But I think that these are, like you were measuring out, they're pretty extreme to 2017. Um, and nothing else comes out during the thing. It is possible. Yeah, they do settle for fines quite a bit,
Right.
but that they also tend to not really, they try to be kind of more laid back. A lot of times the SEC pulls up things first. For them to come forward, I think was
Hmm.
they tend to they want to hit, I don't know, first or last, whatever you want to call it, but like they hit hard.
Right.
Um, and then yeah, maybe you just realize like they're not messing around. You pay the fee, and they might let you off the hook. At this
Right.
point, I would love to see what the fee would be here.
Right. Right. And
Um,
I guess to your point, like you were saying that this allegation was to some degree like phishing as well, right? For more information. So, right. So it could be like, okay, I want to see your response. You're definitely gonna have to pay and pony up, but we're also gonna see like where you stand. And based off of where you stand, we may actually come up with more.
right. No, it was definitely open
Yeah.
for more to come out. Yeah.
Right.
Perhaps they say, hey, we're not American. We're gonna flip. We're gonna just stay out on the outside and fight it out. Um, and that, in some ways, is what ultimately this market needs.
Yeah.
So precedents, one way or the other. If something was done wrong,
Right.
then that's bad.
But
And
I can't like, there's definitely, a butterfly effect. If the U.S. So everyone that's granted Binance a license is probably looking at like an exchange license or some sort of license, right? Whether it's
mhm,
exchange or money, whatever it may be, is probably
right,
looking at this right now and just saying like, we may want to rethink that.
right. Are we a counterparty to some bad activity, and are we
Yeah.
going to get pulled in on that? Right.
Right.
It,
Right.
it definitely could happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, then kind of playing that out, then the number of licenses that they may have will reduce drastically. I'm sure somebody will give him something, right? Like the last place on earth, somebody will give him something.
Yeah. No, it's very true. And then you saw there was another filing for a motion to dismiss. Did you see that?
No, I did not see that. Okay.
Um, there was
Motion to
uh,
dismiss.
in the
Filing.
BZX case. There was what was that? Sorry, in a ruling with versus the Dow.
Ah,
Yeah,
that was. I didn't see the filing to dismiss. That was more. Wasn't that around like the holders of the DAO? Oh yeah, I did send it to you. The holders
yeah,
of the DAO tokens, even though governance, they're claimed to be governance tokens, if they're found to be security tokens, the holders could be liable as well.
right. That's going to be an important one to play out because
Yes.
I do think that DAOs have a fair play,
Yep.
and I think that they version of innovation that is needed.
Yes.
And I don't know if you ever talked to Amanda Reed with Crowdsmart, her company Crowdsmart.
Yeah, yeah, I
They're,
did. I did.
yeah, you should talk to her because they are working with and don't quote me, but it was with the Japanese, with Japan or some agency or participants in Japan, and
Right.
they are looking at trying to get a structure
Okay.
to their IEOs,
Okay.
their exchange offerings, which is getting tokens pretty much as a security, I guess, at this point. And
Right.
through her company's Crowdsmart's, through their sort of a proof of reasoning or sort of a collective reasoning platform, which
Okay.
that's seen it pretty much onboards immediately,
Right.
and it's Japan believes that that's part of stimulating their economy is back to block. I don't know if you're in crypto and DAOs, maybe not, but like they were kind of an early participant in crypto,
Mm.
and then
Mm.
fell victim to kind of some of the early
Sure. Yeah.
problems
The
with
whole
crashes and
Monk
everything.
stuff. Yeah.
Right. So then they kind of pushed it off, and they're like, "It's not safe. We can't do it anymore." You know, they're what they think. But then it came back around, and they're like, "We now see this as a much more viable thing."
Okay. Right.
And if if they're considering that, and they're looking at ways to lower the thresholds of costs and capital requirements to do that IEO process,
Right.
and so, from my understanding, is her company is they're in talks to do that to where through sort of a DAO collective, it can actually govern what multiple people have told DAOs. They go,
Right.
DAOs are kind of a pain in the butt. Like everyone wants democracy, but at some point to try to take into account every single person's voice,
Right.
it's too much of an exercise and it's too burdensome and it's too, you know,
Yep.
it's too slow and bulky to where it's like they don't like DAOs for that reason. The only people ever told me they were like against their the functionality is so that
Yep. Yep.
it almost breaks itself, right? And
Yep.
but we
Yep.
that's where we saw when we saw the one we did, we saw the complete. It was
Right.
like formed quick, formed with a mission. Vision was clear. Vision changed. Just to me, I was like, this is a perfect model of how a DAO should work.
Yep.
And
Hundred
that's when I
percent.
was talking to her a little bit, and she was like, "Hey, we're to where we remove the weird filters or the weird amplify a signal, but they're like false leads, and it really takes it and it uses a bunch of AI." So I was like, I want to
Yes.
see more about it and learn about it. But the fact that their government's thinking about how it may incorporate um, so that everyone's voice. I don't know. Like I want to see a demo of the whole thing because when I heard about it, I was like, this is cool. And so if you known her, if you talked to her
Yeah, I did.
about the
Yeah.
product,
Yeah.
okay,
In Puerto Rico, it's more. I was talking to her on the AI side and more about kind of the decision making, but I didn't know
yeah,
that she actually had kind of the legal. I won't say wrapper, but at least like some perhaps a legal wrapper around it. So I
yeah,
just kind of pinged her as well to have a chat. But I
yeah.
agree.
I would
Like
follow
it's
up.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I would agree.
she
Like
mentioned like they have four. So like there's a
okay,
critical mass there that seems to be um, being that decision making of in some
right,
way could be essential to this whole thing, right? And
right.
if you can go back and back test, and I don't know if the thing could do that, but you know, if you can go back and back test and check how DAO type decisions were made and what was the thinking at the time, if you
Hmm.
could get that capability, which sort of blockchain kind of does, but it's a little bit, you
Hmm.
know, if we're using AI to streamline that, and all of a sudden we can see that, and at that point. That's not database. That's like database on steroids because you know
Hmm.
what I mean? Because we always go everything's clear in the mirror, but it is and it isn't, and why you were thinking the way you were at the time. And if that's actually mapped and dialed in to where governance is in a better place, a more
Hmm.
convenient place, better
Right.
governance at a more convenient thing, boom, that would be
Right.
awesome. And I would love to that could be really essential here to take away, I think, some of these challenges I think are going to pop up in some of these cases because, and that's why I brought up that last case, the BZX versus the Sarkuni, I believe is how they're saying it. Yeah, the Dow
Certainly.
filed a motion to dismiss and it was
Yes.
denied. But to
Yes.
imagine that I mean, because like not all DAOs, I mean, maybe it is. If they did form one DAO and they would just say like 20 to 40 partners, I could understand how that could be considered a partnership.
Yeah.
It's not. You're going to have those people who sort of helped build it, and they maybe get a little bit
Hmm.
of like of token and in
Hmm.
rewarding, and then you might get some advisors that get
Yep.
some, and then you get some investors, and typically they shouldn't all be held on the same, in my opinion, on the same level of ability or accountability, right? I mean, is that?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the tweet. Yes.
To say that they are all general partners seems bold.
The case will proceed personally against the founder as DAO token holders, as well as similar situated defendants. The court dismissed claims against entities that did not hold DAO tokens. This comes to go to. Yeah.
Because even if you say it's a security, okay, I get you, it's a
Yes.
security. How you got it, how you received that security, maybe you need to cough it up or do something. You're part of a general partnership seems over.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's hasn't kind of gone there yet. It just, but they just says, and that argument merits more discussion in court.
Yeah.
Dismissing the motion does not mean the court decided that owning the token makes you 100% liable yet, but it just means that yes, they are thinking about it. And it could be to your point, right? Like getting, if it's like 20 DAO members, right?
Right.
Then okay, I guess there's a larger case, and you say, well, everyone's really kind of much more involved. If there's hundreds and thousands of DAO members, okay, fine, that's like kind of a slightly kind of different case there.
Right.
And not
Right.
everyone that holds DAO tokens may or may not, participate or maybe kind of airdropped, and they just kind of get it as being part of it.
Right.
So it,
Right.
it could be that. It could be different layers of participation as well.
And that brings up a good
Threshold.
question. What do you think? Well, and I think the reason that they were saying that it was to before we move to that next question is if they had, they back against them,
Mm,
but it was
mm,
really the motion to dismiss on the ground being a general partnership, like it's just not the right case.
yeah.
And that would have been nice to just get it thrown out. Now they could have come back again and reformatted, they would have revised their and come back.
Mm,
But so that's where again they're saying that this is still an option that they
right.
will go like that's most likely the foundation of this whole thing and they haven't dismissed that concept. And
Right.
I just that to me is a scary idea. So my question to you is do you think that a DAO must have a certain amount to make it a DAO and then we would have a partnership thing?
Yeah. Um, to be honest, I don't know. I mean, so actually the only kind of part where we actually had a discussion about this between my partner Ben and I was to say this is actually before this part. Um, and because I think this was like 14, 15 hours ago. Um, I don't know how, where we talked about this. And so I need to kind of think about the YouTube clip that we talked about this in. But we kind of said that like on the fund side. So traditionally the way kind of the Constellation Fund and Orange DAO Fund and VC3 DAO Fund is set up is, well, there's kind of two different ways to set up roughly DAO funds. Usually you kind of have a DAO structure and it's investment DAO. And this is kind of the Lao and Neon DAO and Rent DAO. And it's kind of an investment club. And so there's 99, I think it's max is 99 accredited investors coming in, and that's kosher. The other way that we're doing it, kind of Orange Down and Constellation, is you have two structures. You've got a GPLP structure, and then you've got a DAO. And I'm not going to name names, but some of the structures we haven't totally structured yet, so we're a little bit more kind of beginning, but we have a lot more flexibility.
Mhm.
Some of the other DAOs are structured where the fund is GPLB structure, and then the DAO is a foundation, Delaware Core. There's a couple different permutations. The thing that we discussed, and I think we kind of decided, is basically we will have. I think I can remember where we kind of discussed this. The need for a counterparty. At the end of the day, we still live in the real world. We still live in the TradFi world. And as much as we like DAOs and the structures there, somebody, there needs to be a counterparty. People need to be able to send money to a bank account, and and the
Right.
bank account can be opened, right? And then the funds will be there and start investing there, right? So that's the thing. Oh yeah, because we were talking about like SB and the collapse and like what do we do? So for us, what we're thinking is the DAO regulations may be so early right now that for us, what we might do is actually the DAO may not be structured whatsoever. And so it has
Mhm.
ultimate flexibility in what it can do. And as a fund, because we are the GPs, we will have to make sure that that's buttoned up and in a proper GPLP structure and keep it there. But the DAO itself may not be regular at this moment,
Mm-hmm.
because we're not quite sure where it's going to go.
Right,
So
right.
yeah,
Don't corner it into a thesis. Just leave it all legal business.
correct. And so at some point the DAO, because we can say, well, the DAO is just like kind of people coming together and just kind of doing stuff. And then again, I don't know enough about this DAO and what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like Orange DAO, at some point they would receive funds, right? So they were sponsored by Near Protocol. And this is all public knowledge. So they were sponsored by Near Protocol. Well, Near Protocol has to be able to put the fund somewhere, right? So we're kind of thinking, so when that happens, right? When Constellation gets to that point where there is a counterparty, someone needs to put something in. How do we do that? And I think we can, I think for very specific use cases, let's say for a marketing piece, we would set up an entity that's a marketing budget, et cetera. And it's very specific mandate and very specific legal representation for whatever needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the way we will approach it, and then overall keep the DAO very flexible at this
Yeah.
moment,
The only other thing
legally
that
flexible.
okay, gotcha. And the 99 rule for an investment club,
That
is
is for
that
investment club. Um,
okay?
I don't know the structure in the U.S. as well, but my understanding is that's an investment club structure or some sort of like investment. I don't
Because
know.
yeah, as far as general partnerships, I don't think that there's that limit.
The correct, right? Investor, investment club. I think it's investment club or investment, yeah, fund here. The current limit of 99 credit Hertz capital information. Yeah, the SEC limits an LLC to having 99 investors. So I think that's
Oh,
how they structured it as an LLC.
okay, and some of that
Yeah.
tax code more than under like SEC code.
Oh, is that right?
It's saying, yeah, the United States that investment clubs are typically organized as partnerships, which are subject to certain tax rules, and according to the tax code, a partnership can have up to 100 partners before it is required to file additional tax forms and pay additional fees.
Oh,
So it says that an investment club can have more than 100 members, but just would face increased administrative and tax costs.
okay. All right. I didn't know it
So
was a
yeah,
tax
because
thing as well.
yeah, I had never heard of but I don't, we all know that's what's so great about podcasts, right? We live in
Yeah.
there, and it's cool to learn this stuff.
The forcing, let's see, forcing small, yeah, tiny seed. Down, and I'll put this actually in the links as well. Um, yeah, there's okay. I didn't know it was a tax thing as well. The many downsides, the 99 credit investor limit, hurts capital formation. I guess maybe it is a tax thing as well. Um, but yeah, so to answer your question more directly, I really
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
But we're just trying to keep that DAO as flexible as
sweet.
possible.
Right.
And that's something that I sent this article over to Jules as well, because I think you guys are also thinking about this quite critically.
Yeah,
Nobody wants liability, right? We're
yeah.
only
Well,
tokens.
yeah, and that's where seeing what's happening. I think sometimes with these white papers, we may see, and it may be this would be something that again an attorney should really voice their opinion on. And I have some great attorneys who we can set something up if you want to talk to them sometime and see if they can put in their 2 cents on some of this. But that there's these white papers. The thing that's glaringly missing for me with more of a
Mm,
security background is that there's no disclaimer, no warnings, like the
mm,
big bold
mm,
warnings.
mm, mm,
And
mm.
in anything to do with like SEC or with securities, like you have just 20 pages of boilerplates. Of course, you get
Sure.
specific as you
Right.
get this is going to be, but a bunch of them are just like, we control this. Warning,
Right.
warning, warning. It's unsafe. Don't do it. Never buy this.
Right.
And if not, but I would say that that would be something that should just start filing into
Mm,
white papers,
mm.
except, well, and I think maybe before they weren't because they were like, well, we're not a security. We don't want to be sort of
Yes.
seen as that, and by putting these disclaimers in, we might be painting
Sure.
ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's where I think the attorneys should voice their opinion on this. But at the same time, I think we see where this is going,
Sure.
and I just don't want to see the DAOs overly attacked, because I think that they give just so much credibility to life to
Yeah.
the average person to participate in markets that they just don't really have access to,
Yeah. Yep.
and everyone should. There's safe, and then there's risky, and
Yeah.
everyone, that's true. But I think the DAOs can serve a very good purpose.
I think this is where all this recent action I think helps, because I think before it was just like, well, no one's really regulating this thing, so we can kind of fall on the side of like, yeah, we take a little bit more risks. Maybe at some point when they clean things up, we'll figure it out. Now they're drawing a line in the sand and saying, well,
Yeah,
you should have known better, but maybe it's assuming you don't, right? And so just kind of, drawing a line in the sand. And I think ultimately this will get everybody grown up. But again, it kind of goes back to that point, which is some people might think, oh, they're trying to clean things up. They're really stopping U.S. innovation on blockchain. But on the other hand, there's a bill that they just introduced, right? So
right.
they are
And I'd
drawing a
love
line in the sand to say we got to grow up. But on the other hand, they're not stifling that.
Right, right. And the SEC also put out, I think, a notice or a statement that said that they are neutral on the
Okay.
technology itself.
Oh, did they?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, so they did say that they are neutral on blockchain technology, but they are, very much going to protect investors.
Okay.
And I don't know if you saw this one also. They brought up, I want to say 7 or 8 celebrities have now also been.
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
Lindsay Lohan was one of them,
Yep, yep,
unfortunately.
yeah. Paul and a bunch of other
Yeah.
ones. Yeah, they
Yep.
all. So, same idea that there can't be, none of this is new from
Yes.
perspective. Pumps
Correct.
and dumps and hype. They, that's all been done, and it's all known. And yeah, these people should. So if they're doing these things all at the same time, I feel like they're painting a good picture, and they're gonna say you're either on this side or the line, and
Right. Right.
that's ultimately going to be more to the
Yeah.
market.
Yeah. And actually, if you look at everything from a traditional finance perspective, right? All this was like this is all vanilla stuff, right? It's nothing, right? It's nothing that's the marketing, the disclosures. Yeah, that's all kind of known, right? And it shouldn't have been done in the first place anyway.
Yeah. Oh, and actually, one other. What do you think about the anonymity that is possible in the past tokens and some coins and some DAOs? Do you think that the founders should have that even as a right? What do you think?
So I think so. I got rid of that notion. So I used to be anonymous as well. Early on, I think in the DeFi days.
Yeah.
But I got rid of my own kind of anonymous identity pretty quickly. I think about a year afterwards, and then it's also because I also noticed like the early ETH kind of community also never really kind of embraced it. And then
Yeah.
it's pretty much everyone that kind of grew up with DeFi that did it. And then on the other spectrum, I know VCs that traditionally, or sorry, not traditionally, but they did do it before, but now they're definitely turned off of it because if it's their own money, then fine, they can do whatever they want. But if they have LPs, the LPs are demanding, are you doing due diligence? Do you even know what you're
Right.
investing in? That type of thing.
Right.
So I never thought it was a good thing.
Agree.
I
Yeah, I agree.
think the balance of power was to the founder, right? And the founder back then had a lot of kind of leeway and say, well, if you don't want to fund this, great, I'll find somebody else. But now I definitely think that balance of power has, or at least it's not been, founders are not as powerful anymore, which is a good thing. I do think if I put on my VC hat, ultimately, I think we had this conversation in Puerto Rico. The VC also has an obligation and responsibility to steer the founder, and I think it's much harder to steer the founder and to give kind of adult supervision, if you will,
Hmm.
if the founder is anonymous, right? The founder can just peace out, right? You don't even know where that person went. Um, the balance of power really was different back then. So I think on the negotiating table, it was just harder. But yeah, certainly I don't think that's possible. If I put in my founder hat, I would probably say maybe for like DeFi, kind of maybe it kind of made sense. But on the other hand, a lot of these DeFi projects, I think there were a lot of kind of kind of shady stuff going on as well, right? So
Related, right,
so
right.
right. So at the end of the day, why be anonymous, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of my perspective.
And yeah, and I agree. That's what I was in the beginning when you didn't really know how some of this was going to play out. Like you said, the balance of power. It makes sense that it could have become, and I think at this point, we have to see that there's a, like you said, we are real people and this is real life, and you might, potentially, a DAO could still be what like sort of an entity outside the boundaries of the country, and potentially could even have tax benefits, right?
Right.
So that there's these things that I think that we should look and say, hey, some things are within the realm of nation, or sort of like
Mm.
a, sacrifice some things for other.
Mm.
Having, I can't see the real benefit for the participants, customers, or the investors, or anybody in the upstream or
Mm.
downstream in a business
Mm.
model, to have the founders be anonymous,
Mm.
um, because we've already had structures like that where you can't have a trust.
Right.
You can have
Yes.
an offshore company that's then
Right.
trust, and you can hide your name to some extent in that way.
Sure.
So there's already these legal versions of that.
Yeah.
Eventually, they can follow the paper trail or whatever.
Right.
And so I just feel like that may be something that perhaps we should start to put down that concept, because I do think that some founders still think that it's
Oh, really?
valid, or that they
Okay.
didn't want their name on. Remember, they were saying that they didn't want their, like, some people were like cautious about having their name on a DAO on the paper. But
Mm.
now I can understand why, when you see that, you know. But same, if you weren't even receiving anything and you were just giving someone consulting advice, or not advice, I just didn't see the reason to be concerned about having my name as a part of a DAO. We're just helping,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And so I just was thinking about that over the last few days. Like,
Yeah.
would they say this other lawsuit, that
Right.
all participants could be liable or whatever? And it's like, yeah,
I think this is why actually that lawsuit is kind of interesting, right? But I think at the end of the day, I think yeah, I mean, it's the way I view the U.S. legal system, and I haven't been like a huge participant in it, but it's ultimately fair, right? So I think it is like if you're yeah, if there's like 1,000 participants in the DAO, you happen to receive like 100 tokens, I don't see the entire force of the American legal system going after you, right? I just
right,
don't. I don't, right?
yeah,
Now, if you are, one of those that part of the core team, and it definitely kind of sees that. And I think, and I was actually reviewing this with someone's in the podcast. Like, I think the spirit of like what a lot of these the last 2 years, a lot of the DAOs and the DeFi protocols, the spirit of what they were trying to do, I think were noble, right? I think FTX. I don't think Sam Bankman-Fried was like particularly evil. I don't honestly
mm,
think so in Do Kwon. But I do think what happens is over time there's greed, right? And kind of greed takes over, right? And unfortunately, that we're all humans. That's what happens. And so, being anonymous, I think, allows a lot of that to slip through the cracks. You can be greedy, and no one's looking after you. You're not totally transparent. You're not totally like, accountable and responsible. And you can. I mean, it takes a very special saint to I think override one's greed instincts, right, to do the right thing.
hmm,
So I don't see anything wrong with not being anonymous. Yes, that you might open yourself up to kind of liability. That's always going to be the case, but we live in the real world. And I think it also could just kind of, if you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't be afraid, right?
The liability should be priced in.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. There's a normal thing where things can go wrong,
Yep.
and that you price that into what you
Yep.
is
Yep.
willing to risk for the ROI,
Yep.
know?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think that may be something that needs to come to the forefront of some of this.
Yeah.
And that's where, again, I think an attorney would be great to have on and have those questions, because it's, do we kind of just close the option anymore? Should disclaimers start popping up on the web? And, and is there another thing we haven't even seen yet? And that's what will be great. These cases will, what's of substance and what's of concern that maybe we haven't.
Yeah.
And then we can get to, because there's so much happening in the next 7 years. Man, there is so much. Did you see it? I mean, we're always talking about AI and, and technology and stuff, but the new one where, and I haven't been the biggest fan of Microsoft over the last few years. They kind of get on my nerves. There's too much logging in all the time to like
Teams.
bananas.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it always needs me to log in again and again and again.
Right.
But they just came out with their version of CoPilot.
Okay. Right. I haven't played around with it.
Okay. So what's cool about it is that you can then link documents.
Okay.
So you can say like pull from this document, and then a presentation and with normal prompts and stuff. And then you can say, oh, by the way, make it look like my old presentation.
Oh, really?
So okay. The theme. So yeah, so there's some pretty cool CoPilot stuff that I was actually dabbling around with it this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll keep you posted on that, because there's so many.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know how that works, because I also know Google started to do some of that as well, right? So I haven't been on Word and like, Excel in a long time, right? Like and PowerPoint, right? But yeah, if they can do that for Google Slides, oh, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah. And I had seen where like in Google, you can go in and now you can do the voice dictation and stuff, which is pretty helpful. You just type, and it's so smooth. It really gets your whatever you're typing or whatever. And now Microsoft has that also. But yeah, I've just always it was just so much more convenient to use my Google stuff. Yeah. But I hadn't seen one that would pull documents and combine. Like even ChatGPT-4, it has you can put in a lot of instructions and say, check this, not this document. But I think you maybe can with APIs, and they said those are coming out soon.
Yes.
So that would
pull documents together. Yeah, actually, if you can, do you know what that function is called?
In
yeah.
They're calling it CoPilot. You just go into open Microsoft 365, like, so not the desktop, like not the down and installed one, the version. As soon as you do that, it'll say, hey, what do you want to whip with CoPilot?
Right. Create content with CoPilot. Draft a proposal from yesterday's meeting notes. Right.
So that's you could have your customers' notes in OneNote, and you could have a document that you have in OneDrive, and then and take a look at this document, take a look at that document, which ChatGPT-4 seems to still be a little limited. You can sometimes get it to sort of, but sometimes it does it and sometimes it doesn't, like.
So you can do it. Can you do CoPilot in like Google Docs? And suppose you can you can do it through Zapier, connect your Google Docs with CoPilot integrations, new document. Yeah, it seems kind of clunky and not as like built in.
Yeah.
As
which would be the first time that Microsoft's gotten at something where all it made sense. You're like, oh, your stuff. I'm so annoyed. Oh yeah.
But it is a pretty interesting. Yeah, like on Notion, I've used the AI function, and that's been incredibly helpful. I know, and in fact, I haven't pursued this. I used to invest in AI actually, so I guess it takes a bit of work to get me excited. I think it's good. I mean, it's definitely is good. But I think it's really interface. But someone actually, what someone kind of mentioned to me was a lawyer in Hong Kong said, and he's a partner, he's in-house counsel, and he was like, he doesn't strike me as someone that actually would use like ChatGPT, but he came up, we had a kid's kind of birthday party. He's like, hey, I use ChatGPT for drafting my legal docs. And I was like, what are you talking about? So Yeah, so I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, it gets me 90% of the work done." And there's a particular app because we don't have access to ChatGPT, but there's an app, a core app called and I can drop this in the link as well, Poe. And you
Okay.
can draft a doc, but it actually basically it gives you different. You can use Sage, ChatGPT,
Nice.
GPT-4. There's like multiple LLMs that you can use, and basically, yeah, you use the same prompt, and then you just say, "Hey, look, which engine do I want to use?" And some are better than others.
Hmm. That's clever.
And yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, so it's yeah, but even kind of partners and law firms are using it, and he was like, "Yeah, it's 95% of the work." Right. So I was
Yeah.
like, "Geez."
Yeah. Well, and it's funny if once you what you're talking about, it's clearly behind, right? But it
Yeah.
does help so much of the nonsense fluff around the core concepts that But if you were to trust it on the stuff that when you know what you know and you test against
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it's not in that way. But it's a huge time saver. And really, all I was saying was all of these cool things. In the next 7 years, there is so much
Right.
change and innovation coming, and I'm big on like the environment and stuff, so it's like all of that has radical stuff to have happen. And back to this DAO and the investment stack, there's there's gaps. There's the 10-year model for a standard VC thing is functional when we expect radical
Yes.
innovation turnover within like
Right.
2 to 4 years.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
everything we're making right now, we have to make on it, but it might be obsolete in like four
Right.
years, and so be it because we just
Right.
have to do that.
Yeah.
And I think DAOs can really help with that, and not just DAOs, but of structures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Blockchain will all help with that, and so
Actually,
it's
this
exciting.
conversation you're right. It kind of made me excited. Actually, it's great that we're cleaning up things, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So that we can pave the way for the future. And I thank you for kind of juxtaposing all this cleanup with that bill, right? And I was just like, I kind of thought, and I think the dialogue and the narrative was, the U.S. is not open for innovation. But clearly, I think the bill has kind of set that narrative away, right? Because I think they are open for business, and I think it's just ultimately just trying to clean things up to protect retail investors, which they should have done a long time ago.
agreed, agreed. And we are finding some more. I'll send you an of those banks and processors
Okay.
because
Oh,
there
cool.
are banks and processors that we're finding more, and we're digging into what they can, what they can't, what their fees and all are.
Okay.
So we do have again, that's not being stifled out. It was too concentrated in a couple different things. And I don't know if you've seen the news, like it's the that the way that was so consolidated in SVB is being picked up
Mm,
by multiple JP Morgan, Brex, three or four others.
Mercury,
They're
probably.
all yeah. So
Yeah.
it's not like because if you really want to see a stamp out, they would have
Yes.
not even if they weren't told official. Like if it was like if nobody had heard anything, they would have been like behind the doors and been like, listen, don't pick this up, or we're going to come after you next.
Right.
And to
Right. Right.
see,
Right.
so I think that with like you said, we are very open for business, and yeah,
Yeah, I know. I heard the same thing. I was talking to someone that was a lawyer, and he's U.S. qualified, and I was talking to him about the different processes and the different so the way they treated SVB was very different from Signature. The way because SVB was protected and then sold, or no, shut down, bankruptcy, and then I think bankruptcy. Signature was shopped around and sold ultimately to I think New York. Yeah, New York.
yeah.
And then First Republic was like doled out, right, to five or six different banks.
Everyone
And,
has
and
stepped up. Yeah,
yeah, and so it was just kind of like why the different approaches, the different ones, and he was basically just saying the government didn't even know what they were going to do, right? So there were certain risks that they need to protect, and they felt that the banks were at risk, but they also didn't have a playbook. So it's not like they were coordinated to trying to shut down crypto. I think
right.
there were some systemic issues in the bank themselves, and the different approach was they were just trying to figure it out themselves.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this Operation Choke Point thing, I think, yeah,
Yeah, I
hot
mean,
air.
all these conspiracies are turning out to be somewhat true. So I think that it's again that Operation Chokebook could have gotten through the rumor mill, turned into something else. But
Yeah,
there was, I think that, I mean, it's funny. They were saying, they were going off and then boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
3 or 4 big legal things happened. So it might've been Operation Choke Point was just like, we're going to go get Do Kwon and CZ and, you know, we're going to,
I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah, I think yeah, maybe someone saw the headlines for choke point and just like, all right, I'm gonna equate everything with choke point. Yes, I think we're probably a few things. And but I don't think it was specifically. Yeah, that's right. Probably not like banking on the banking side, not specifically crypto against crypto. Choke point was probably against like CC and Do Kwon, right?
yeah, it
Right
doesn't
in the
take much
American
for
banking.
rumor, you know, the phone game to the intent, because I do think that there would be, we would have found no solutions, and right now
Right.
we are finding
Yes,
alternatives.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's right. 100%. You're 100% correct. It's not like they shut it down. It's like we're not open for business. Yes, I think other banks are picking back up.
yeah, yeah,
Cool.
and they've done
Yeah.
that. Yeah, so well, this was a great one, and
It's always good. It's always good.
yeah,
It's always
I
good to like
know.
to just kind of talk things through, right? Like what the hell's going on in the world?
Yeah,
But I gotta
yeah.
jet because my wife is back, so I gotta say hi.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Well, we'll do this again, and thank you so much, and it's always really a pleasure. Yeah.
Sounds good, brother. All right.
Talk to you
Cheers.
soon. Bye, buddy.
Bye.